Welcome to the Speaking Frankly Football Show. I'm Frank Hughes, the chairman of Skelmersdale United Football Club. Joining me is my dedicated co-host and press officer, AJ Vergette. While having a background in football isn't a requirement to host such a podcast, it certainly gives us an edge. We're diving headfirst into the dynamic world of non-league football in the Northwest, and we won't shy away from discussing the major headlines that shape the sport. We'll take you inside life in the Northwest counties, bringing engaging interviews with prominent figures in the league and analyse local teams' performances while confidently predicting upcoming matches. No topic is off limits. We're tackling everything from those tricky refereeing decisions to the regulations that often leave fans scratching their heads. This is your show. We want to hear from you, so don't hesitate to share the issues you're passionate about. Let's kick off this conversation and relish every moment. We are speaking frankly. Hello and welcome to the 6th episode of the Speaking Frankly Football Show, and welcome to my co-host AJ.
Hello everyone, and hello Frank. Thank you very much for tuning into yet another episode of the Speaking Frankly Football Show, our 6th episode, as Frank rightly points out, hosted by Frank Hughes, the man with all the knowledge, and AJ with absolutely none at all.
I don't know, it worked the other way around last week. But listen, in this week's episode, we'll discuss some of the controversial issues surrounding the game, both locally and nationally. That's in the first part of the show. In the second part of the show, we have a really insightful interview with Paul Jones, the manager of FC Isle of Man. It's an excellent opportunity to hear about his experiences and the direction he envisions for the club. And finally, we'll focus on the local football clubs and provide our usual Northwest Counties results roundup. And we will be highlighting the hard work and dedication of teams in our community. But before we begin, I just wanted to share my thoughts as chairman of Skelmersdale United Football Club, because once again, because of the keyboard warriors, I've got the right to reply. And now, since returning to the club in May 2023, my primary goal has always been to ensure its viability and facilitate our return to Skelmersdale. Now, it's important to acknowledge that the journey has been more challenging than I initially anticipated. While the results are significant, I've come to realise that there are deeper issues that we must address. Some may find this difficult to hear, but I'm going to say it. It's crucial to recognise that if the club is to be relegated to the Cheshire League or the Liverpool Premier League, it shouldn't overshadow our ultimate priority, which is preventing the club from going out of business. So let's focus on maintaining the club's existence and building for the future. Now, on a positive note, we are actively engaging with key stakeholders who share a vision with us of returning the club back to its hometown. So whilst progress may be gradual, it's reassuring to know that we're collaborating with equally committed people to this mission.
Absolutely, yeah. I think the notion of relegation is automatically one that kind of strikes fear into the hearts and minds of any fan of the club, and I get it. I think when I sort of first began to think about Skelmersdale United being relegated out of the Northwest Counties League, I did think, what does this mean for the club? Does it mean the end of the club? Does it mean that we'll be playing on a field somewhere, being watched by every man and his dog for free? Where's the income going to come from? Are the sponsors going to abandon us? Are the players going to abandon us? Are we even going to have a team? But actually, kind of after speaking with Frank and learning and understanding more about what will happen if we do get relegated. Obviously, it's not something that we actively want to happen. Of course it isn't. But it is not the doom and gloom that keyboard warriors would have you feel it is. It's really important that if you're not sure about what will happen to the club if we are relegated, that you do get in touch with a member of the club and its committee, and we will happily walk you through exactly what will happen.
And not to forget that our roots come back to amateur football. That's where we started, where most football clubs started. And what I don't want, the reason I brought this up is because we all share the same worries. It's not like we don't think about it. We haven't considered relegation. But at the end of the day, when I returned to the football club, it was very, very close to going out of business. Now, I would sooner see a club continue to stay in business, find its way back to Skelmersdale, regardless of what division it's in. So I don't want people thinking that we don't think about relegation, because we do. We're fully aware of it, and we share the same worries as everybody else. We're just human. But listen, we talked about waving magic wands. Nobody's coming in with huge wads of money to help the football club. That's not happening.
No.
So we have to deal with this in the best way possible. And right now, that's to continue with these talks about getting ourselves back to Skem. And from what we've started at the beginning of this season, albeit we're not doing particularly well in the league, we're trying to stabilise, and we're trying to get a settled squad, a settled management team for the seasons ahead. We've got to find stability at the end of the day. So that's why I'm bringing that up again, because I feel I probably feel more ambitious now about the football club than I've ever done before. And I've been at the football club when it's had really good success. I enjoyed it then, but I'm probably enjoying this journey more now. It's tougher, I know, but there's an objective, and we're going to work our way. Towards that. There's no doubt about it.
Absolutely, we'll work our way back to where we belong.
Yeah, definitely.
Whether we're taking the long route or not.
But listen, we'll talk about our latest defeat at the end of the show when we're doing the roundup. But
yes,
we like to occasionally we do it every week, don't we?
Yeah.
We like to talk about controversial issues.
Yes.
Now, I don't know whether it's controversial or not, but let's talk about #United. Now, I don't know a great deal about them, other than they were established in 2016 by a YouTuber called Spencer Carmichael Brown, widely recognised as Spencer FC. For anybody that's in the gaming community, in the sense of FIFA. I don't understand all of this, by the way. My son's better. My son knows. I've never played FIFA. I've never played on a PlayStation. Have you?
Yes, I have.
All right. Well, you could probably explain this a bit better than I can.
Yeah, so Spencer Carmichael Brown is Spencer FC, and that's his YouTube handle. He documented his games with friends, his games of FIFA on YouTube. That's his kind of origination into the YouTubing world, and his dream was owning a football club. So he managed to garner quite a hefty following from his exploits of gaming, and eventually started to get money from it, and then eventually was able to put together #United.
Yeah, that sounds right. So you listen, in 2018, the club entered the English football system through the Eastern Counties League. Now, thanks to their strong support and engagement and enthusiasm at that stage, they quickly rose through the ranks, and are now in the Step 6 League in Essex. Is it Step 6 or a little bit further up than that, aren't they?
I think they are now. That's where they started. I think they're at Step 5, if I remember rightly. Yeah.
Well, during the 2022-23 season, they went on a 21 league winning streak, clinching the Isthmian. Is it pronounced?
Isthmian. We will never.
Isthmian. That's it.
All right. Okay.
The Isthmian League North Division title. Now, whilst they finished a commendable 7th last season.
Yeah.
They face a few more challenges this year. It's been a bit more difficult for them the start of this season.
Yes. So the individuals behind the club have a lot of experience within social media, and it's allowed them quite naturally to attract sponsorship and to grow their influence online. Their branding sort of sparked a lot of interest, which was always going to happen, particularly during away games where the high attendance contributes financially to the sport. The influx of fans benefits the game as it brings in the additional revenue.
Yeah, I found that a fascinating fact, really, is that the attendance is away from home better than at home.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of resistance towards this sort of hashtag social media football club, but it's brought a lot of finances to football clubs, which can only benefit the game in general.
I think so, yeah. Hashtag United are a bit of a unique one in that although they are based in Essex, their fan following reaches a lot further and a lot wider than most teams in their level, primarily because of the influence of Spencer Carmichael Brown and benefactors behind the club who also have a social media following. Now, at that point, they will have only been playing within localised Essex region, but now with them kind of having sort of climbed the ladder a little bit more, their reach and their games will kind of spread a little bit further than that. So you will naturally have more fans. I mean, I say naturally, it's probably one of the first of its kind, really, where fans are going to away games specifically to support the away team, despite not living in the area where the club was formed. It's actually a really kind of fascinating concept.
I think Spencer described it as a lot of dormant fans at the away games and sort of bought into the idea of this, or they've been nosy really to find out what it's all about.
Yeah,
it would attract a younger audience, I would imagine.
Yeah. I think Spencer himself was certainly a very young fella at the time, and a lot of the gaming community who kind of actively pursue his team are quite young. I'm led to believe. Obviously, if you are an older fan, please let us know. Speaking frankly, and we will, amend. But yeah, from what I'm led to believe, they are sort of a very young fan base.
And one of their challenges now is going to be obviously the lack of established geographical routes. Would you think?
Yeah, I don't know how much of a pull that they've got within their localized region. I mean, a lot of their fan base is born out of gaming, and I think it's a difference between actually playing the game on FIFA and actually going and watching your team play. I don't know whether the interest is likely to wither because their fan base is born out of a love of gaming.
So they're currently ground sharing at Aveley FC. So in terms of, when I say established sort of geographical routes, it's more down to the name really, isn't it? Hashtag. It's not like they are a town or a city.
No, they don't have real roots within they don't have really roots within the community. They just happen to turn up to a shared ground and play, really. I suppose having kind of that nomadic existence has benefited them in that their away support is really handy at other communities, but it doesn't kind of give them any decent establishment in the community wherever they are because they don't have one.
Is this sort of our attempt on these shows of being a franchised or inventing a franchised pattern?
I don't think so.
Because if this model worked, then you could literally start a football club up anywhere, couldn't you? You could call, hashtag Skelmersdale football club?
You could. I think the difficulty within most is that they like I say, they tend to have a geographical route, and I think if you do start picking up and putting down roots in any other environment, really, you're automatically going to come into a bit of a conflict of interest with whatever sporting community is there to begin with. I mean, we're quite lucky in that we are the only club within Skelmersdale. We don't have a local derby with Skelmersdale Town or any other any other kind of football club with its roots embedded within a shared community like this. But I do think the issue kind of does arise in as well as that you alienate a fan base by moving them from place to place. I think #United are a rare exception to the rule in that their away support seems to garner a bigger following than their home.
So we're in agreement that potentially this could limit their long-term progress. I think even Spencer would agree himself, because I think he's mentioned that at some stage for them to move forward, that the pathway might be through a merger with another football club, and they've actually spoke about merging, or talks have been had about merging with I don't know, is it a League One football club?
I mean, that's an enormous jump, that is, from a League One club to where are #United now? They're about step 5.
Yeah, it's step 4. So
step 4.
The one below the Conference South. Mm-hmm. So that's step 4, isn't it? One.
So that's 3 full divisions and a little bit more. Can you imagine any of the carry that #United's players will have there? I mean, you'd be alienating an entire squad of players.
I don't know how you merge.
I don't know how you can merge. I don't think it's a realistic proposition at all. Especially not one from a League One team, even a League Two team. I think if you merge with anybody, you're going to alienate a fan base, as was discussed last week between Bury AFC and Bury Football Club. You do alienate a little bit. And I don't see how it could work when the gap between them in the footballing pyramid is so vast.
So listen, I don't see how a merger could possibly work. I don't know how it favours a League One football club, other than the fact that they do have an awful lot of. I think at the moment their main club sponsor is EE. So they've managed to secure a really huge,
quite a lucrative one,
sponsor. Yes. Yeah, I do think that in this present day, that the likes of these creators, influencers, or entrepreneurs, whatever you want to call them, they do represent the future of football, because they know how to run a business. Whereas if you look at the traditions of the older, more established clubs, their roots started, they were amateur football clubs. There wasn't any great money involved in football.
Yeah.
The football landscape has changed completely now, so maybe it is a business that should be run by these kind of people.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, I think what influencers have to their detriment is that running a business has to be combined with a level of pragmatism that perhaps they don't see. I mean, I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that a fully fledged YouTuber who's making millions off what they're doing is not pragmatic in some way. But I think if you are ambitious enough to feel like you can make a living based on submitting videos through YouTube and garnering an enormous following and influencing people, then the level of ambition you've got to then own a football club means that you enter a certain level of starstruckedness, where you feel like you can climb the ladder higher and higher and higher, almost a bit like Icarus, really, the story of Icarus, flew too close to the sun and got burned. Will Spencer Carmichael Brown end up getting burned as a result of his ambition? I don't know, but I don't think the level of ambition that influencers have to be able to start being an influencer to then running a club is compatible. And I do wonder whether #United will continue to run. I wonder whether they'll be able to kind of strike out on their own.
He's quite pragmatic in his approach, because he's already gone on record as saying that the next step up for them is the National League South, but the transition will present huge problems in terms of travel costs, accommodation, and the obvious increase in playing budgets. But they do have a strong sort of business acumen and strategic planning behind them. So I think they're well positioned to navigate these obstacles themselves.
You might be right.
But he's trying to do it in a measured way. He's already said that. He
said the bar well.
He doesn't want to grow too fast because he wants to feel his way around.
Well, I think this is the struggle that some teams have when they become the benefactors of very rich people who kind of throw money at them, really, rather than investing in the infrastructure and try to make them a business model rather than a playing model, if you like. It will be interesting to see exactly how this kind of pans out over the next year or two, really. I mean, I don't know whether they'll
come to the first part of their struggles. They're having a season of struggles.
They are, yeah. I don't know whether. Yeah, I mean, we're saying this like, they're sort of 15 points clear at the top of the league. They're not. The first step that they've got is establishing themselves within their current league and then making a challenge for promotion. It doesn't look like it's going to happen this year. It may not even happen next year. They don't have an enormous squad, from what I've seen.
They don't even have huge gates, do they? The middle of the table gates.
Oh, come on.
So they acknowledge all of that as well.
Yes, they do. But I hope that there are people on the board who are, sort of savvy enough to understand exactly where the building can sort of take place, and it's not on the pitch. It's in the structure of how they're run as a club.
So the long term of the success of the club is to establish geographical roots, get their own ground. Yeah. Obviously.
Yeah, I think so, and I think they're going to. I don't think they're going to do it ground sharing. I just don't. I think it's a very kind of nomadic existence, really. If they're going to want to stay within kind of the roots of Essex, that's absolutely fine, but they need to find an area where they've got a decent fan base already, and an area and a home that they can call their own.
Most definitely. But listen, I was really sceptical about this so-called evolution in football not long ago. My perspective has shifted. I think it's essential to recognise that all established clubs began from humble beginnings. So in today's landscape, football is indeed a business, and the innovation brought by creators like #United deserves some recognition and support, because I think it's an amazing. If you look at the story of Spencer, they had 5-6-a-side matches, and he used to record them. Him and his friends used to record the games, and they went from that point forwards and ended up creating a cup called the Wembley Cup, I think it was, and played in front of, I think it was 34,500 people. So he certainly knows how to attract an audience, and if you compare his appearances at Wembley to most modern footballers at the top of their game, then I think he's been there far more often than most footballers. So he does have an idea of what he's doing, and who knows how much further he can go and how much more successful. Listen, if anybody wants to comment on that, drop a message and tell us what your thoughts on it. It'd be really interested. I would be interested to know more about it from somebody that's involved with #United as well, because it'd be great to see it from their perspective as well.
Yeah.
So moving on to other controversial
absolutely issues. So we're going to open with dogs. Are dogs welcome at football grounds? Should dogs be welcome at football grounds? I think this has got a pertinent question. So there was a case over the weekend with a club that insisted on the removal of a spectator who had with him a dog. It was an assistance dog, as it transpired, but that didn't cut any ice with the club in question, who asked him to leave. Now, I should make it clear that assistance dogs, whilst specially trained to carry out support and assistance, do not carry with them any law to identify them as assistance dogs. They can just look like the average man in the street taking his pet dog for a walk. And I think that was a key factor in this individual being asked to leave the ground that they were spectating at. And I suppose it begs the question of whether dogs in their own right or assistance dogs should be allowed at football matches at this level.
We're a nation of dog lovers,
Absolutely.
for starters. So
Yes.
most of us don't have a problem with pet dogs in general. There's no doubt about that.
No. Skelmersdale United do welcome dogs.
Yeah,
Just to make
there's
that
nothing
clear.
there's nothing banning dogs from coming to Skem.
As long as they bark for Skem.
Yeah, as long as they bark for Skem, that's correct. Yeah, good one. But I think that this sort of problem was a little bit different because these were school playing fields that were mentioned, and the fact that from a hygiene point of view, having dogs on a school playing field could jeopardise the health of a young child. Or that's the way it seemed to be put.
That's the way it seems to be put. Yeah, I mean it's sort of quite different being immediately pitch side, with a dog on a ground that's being shared by children. The ground did make it clear that dogs were not accepted at all. But
Unless they were assistance dogs.
well, not even that. The signs on the pitches or pitch side said no dogs. It was only when the club then ratified that by saying that they would accommodate assistance dogs where possible. However, this was after the incident, so whether they actually were able to accommodate assistance dogs prior to making the announcement on social media is kind of left to the reader's interpretation, really.
So the vital quote, and you've already alluded to it, is at present there's no national assistance dog register, and assistant dogs are not legally required to wear identifying equipment or ID tags.
No, they're not. Now,
so that's part of the problem.
I think it is a little bit of an issue. Yeah, I mean, we are, like you say, we are a nation of dog lovers, and I take my dog most places with me, and I think there are a lot of people who do. Dogs are a wonderful companion, and when trained correctly and owned and loved properly, they're absolutely no hindrance or nuisance to anybody. Obviously, there are certain kind of policies that come with bringing a dog into a public environment. They remain on a lead. You have the appropriate clean-up gear for them should they need the toilet, things like that.
Will the worry be with dangerous dogs?
Well, dangerous dogs.
There's a lot of dangerous dogs knocking about.
There certainly are, and indeed we've banned several species as a country, based on behaviour exhibited by certain breeds. However, I believe, and I think a lot of people would kind of agree with me on this argument, is that it is not the dog that exhibits the behaviour, it's the owner who's trained the dog to behave like that is the issue. Now, we've always said that dogs, when entering a public facility like this, and indeed assistance dogs are, obliged to enter public facilities, under their role as assistance dogs. And I think I've never seen a dog run amok or be let off their lead whilst in the vicinity of a football ground. Certainly not at this level. Only time I've seen it is when I was at a Sunday league fixture, and it was a public park. So what are you going to do?
I have to. I don't want to lighten the mood too much because it is a serious issue.
What are you going to say, Frank?
It's certainly well. I was at a football match many years ago. It was a non-league football match, and I was standing alongside a group of lads that were, should we say, a little bit inebriated, and you could tell that one was egging the other on, and eventually it culminated in him derobing himself, taking all his clothes off and running across the pitch stark naked, and a dog decided to run after him. And he was zigzagging here, there and everywhere. When he ran out of puff, because he was a bit of a large bloke, he ended up flat on his back, and the dog stopped right in between his legs.
No, it didn't.
It licked his meat and two veg.
Okay.
So
I apologise to any of you who were listening to this while eating your dinner.
So there you go. So what we're saying to you is that if you don't look after your dogs, if you don't keep them on the leads, then you do stand the chance of losing your crown jewels as well.
Yeah, you absolutely do, or indeed having them licked by a dog.
Yeah.
However, I don't think this...
I know I've gone off the subject there.
Yes, the hysteria.
Because what I believe is, you see, I think that the particular thing that we're sort of alluding towards is being out on social media, and that I don't think the two parties have handled it particularly well. I think it could have been sorted out behind closed doors. And
ideally, the advice that we would give you is just check with your club before taking your dog to the ground.
Yeah, to make sure that they're allowed at the ground. But of course, if there's no national kind of ID, anybody could come along and say it's an assistance dog, of course.
Assistance dog,
and I'm not suggesting that this bloke in question was, sort of hiding behind the assistance dog.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think he was. No, but listen, that's by the by. Hopefully. This will resolve itself and they'll kiss and make up. But yeah, listen, moving on to our next point.
We'll go north to Gateshead. Yeah. Yes. So the Gateshead encountered a bit of a challenging period when they were unable to participate in the National League playoffs last season because they did not have the correct lease on their ground to allow them into the playoffs. So the ruling is that when you are at a ground, when you play at home at a ground, that ground has to have a 10-year lease on it, and Gateshead Stadium did not have that. It's owned by the local council, Gateshead Council, and they weren't able to give the correct assurances that the ground would have that lease, simply because they couldn't afford it. So Gateshead had to give up challenging in the playoffs last season. But now things have changed. So Gateshead Council have handed over ownership of the stadium and indeed the leisure centre that comes with it to a private benefactor called Greenwich
Leisure Limited.
Greenwich Leisure Limited. Thank you, Frank. I've got this on my notes somewhere and it's absolutely nowhere to be seen. Apologies.
It's about to start. That will commence in April next year, alongside the leisure centres in Hewith, Dunstan and Leyden.
Yes, indeed. The transition is expected to bring stability and new opportunities for the stadium and indeed for the club. Now it's very, very sort of quite lucky that they've come across this private benefactor. So under Gateshead Council, 2 leisure centres were closed down last year because Gateshead Council simply couldn't afford to run them, and made the statement that they stood to lose hundreds of millions over the course of several years if they continue to try and run these leisure centres. So they closed 2 of them down, and then obviously Gateshead's own stadium and leisure centre followed. So it does beg the question of whether publicly owned leisure facilities like this are a good idea, and whether they can thrive or whether they're going to dive. Frank?
Well, what we know with local councils, when they get to the point of almost bankruptcy, then the things that are going to give are going to be sporting facilities,
and
as we've witnessed in West Lancashire with the proposed closure of Parkpool in Ormskirk and Nybevan in Skelmersdale. So yes, we do believe that private collaboration is probably the way forward. It certainly seems to be that case for Gateshead, which is a good luck story in the end, because last season it was a controversial issue at the end of last season because they couldn't compete in the playoffs. This season, it'll be understandable that there'll still be lingering frustrations from last season, but as it stands right now, Gateshead are in 5th place in the National League, so they're in the playoff positions right now. So hopefully they'll go on to have a successful season where they can compete in the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it does herald very much a new dawn for Gateshead FC. Obviously, they're now under the help of a private benefactor, and as you mentioned, in public ownership, leisure and arts are often the first to go. I've often found that theatres and facilities for dance, drama, music are also one of the first to go out the door when cuts are enforced.
A lot of it's down to footfall as well. When the councillors are studying what's going on in the area, if the footfall is down in any particular leisure aspect, then like you say, they'll be bin it off.
Yeah, but I mean, Gateshead are not short of good attendance from what I'm led to believe. No. Good solid hundreds in there, not 100, sort of 400 or 500, I believe, is the average attendance. And like I say, I do believe it'll herald a new dawn, and I do think that by the end of the season they could very well be going up, and not a minute too soon, if you ask many Gateshead fans.
Yeah, definitely. Listen, good luck to Gateshead for the rest of the season.
Most certainly.
That's a really good positive story, as I say, one that was controversial, but now looking like a good story. Now, listen, with little things like refunds for abandoned matches.
Yeah.
Now, currently, according to widely recognised rules set by the FA, ticket holders are entitled to half-price admission to rescheduled matches if a match is abandoned after kick-off. This policy addresses the challenges fans and clubs face when unforeseen circumstances arise. Now, obviously, I think there's been a question over a game that was.
Yeah, so the team in question were Malden and Tiptree down in the Essex division, and they had a match abandoned. I forget the name of the visiting team, but one Twitter user went on to the Malden and Tiptree Twitter page and asked whether they could inquire about a refund, and somebody else replied that asking for refunds from teams at kind of our level of non-league football is frowned upon, to put it politely. Yes. So I do wonder whether it's appropriate. I mean, matchday tickets for our level isn't that expensive, is it? I mean, you're looking at most £10.
There is a sort of example. Last season, we played Bearscough. The game wasn't abandoned, but it had to be replayed because we fielded an ineligible player.
Tut.
So arguably, our supporters could have turned around and said, well, that game didn't culminate in any points because the points were deducted. Therefore, that game never existed. So we've got to go and watch the same game second time round. Do we get a refund? The answers to the questions are simply that match day arrangements, whether it be stewarding game, staff, all of those costs are still there regardless of whether a game gets abandoned or not. I would imagine it's a little bit more difficult if you're paying like 60, 70, 80 pounds to go and watch a Premier League game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you'd be more than entitled given the profits that Premier League clubs appear to be churning out. I think at this level, though, I would raise an eyebrow at most who would try and
get a few pence back.
Get a few quid back from a non-league club because
they need the money, really.
Yeah,
don't
non-league clubs need the money at this level. We're not projecting tens of thousands of pounds of profit. We're getting by, but my goodness me, we're not exactly paying in riches here. So I think if you can afford to leave £7 at the door of a club who could probably use it an awful lot more than you can, then you absolutely should do that.
Yeah.
Even in this current cost of living crisis.
Most definitely. Well spotted. Right, now you had another controversial story, a story of knock and run in football.
Yes.
Now this is a funny yet controversial
you've got
story.
to giggle at this one a little bit, yeah.
I don't know anything about this, so go on.
Yeah, absolutely. So the story and indeed the the man behind it concerns one Leroy Lita. Now, if you are a fan of obscure Premier League footballers like me, then Leroy Lita is a name that'll probably spring to mind for his efforts in the Premier League with Reading, who are particularly of note. And a tweet came out on a Hinckley group page, which reads, "Can Leroy Lita of Barwell FC stop doing knock-a-door run after training sessions? He is constantly awakening my grandma's cat at 10:15 every Tuesday. I have video evidence on my Ring doorbell in his full Barwell training kit. Could someone have a word with the manager or chairman to get this sorted immediately? Many thanks."
Is this a straight-up story, this, or is it...
Do you know what? You would love to say yes.
I tried to do a little bit of digging, but I couldn't find any information.
You'd love to say yeah. Imagine if Leroy Lita went from dominating the Premier League to playing knock-a-door run at Granny's door. Absolutely incredible story, that one. Just shows the sheer immaturity of the man to do it. Now, we have no idea whether this story carries any weight or not, or whether it's true. I simply sent this to Frank and thought to bring it up in the podcast just because of how hilarious it is.
And it certainly is the funniest story that we've had in the Speaking Frankly football show.
There you go.
In all its 6 episodes.
So if Leroy Lita or anyone of Barwell FC does manage to come across this episode of the Speaking Frankly football show, can you just give Leroy Lita a bit of a clip round the ear if it is true?
Yeah, leave the neighbours alone.
Leave the cat alone.
Yeah, leave the cat alone.
Yeah, exactly.
But listen, that's a fabulous way to end the first part of the show, I think. AJ, do you?
I think so, Frank. Yeah, I need a cup of tea.
Right, okay. Listen, coming in the second part of the show, we will be speaking to Paul Jones, who's the manager of FC Isle of Man, and discussing his rise within the ranks of that team. So we look forward to speaking to you or seeing you in the second half of the show. Special shout out to all the businesses that support Skelmersdale United Football Club, Origin Sign Company, T&W Garners, 7PDS, Skem Express Cars 5005, Lease Car UK, RNB Auto Centre, SB Skills Solutions and Hey Presto Web Design. Thank you to everyone who donates to the club, supports our race nights, raffles and the lottery bonus ball scheme. And, of course, the last man standing. A special thanks to those who organise these fundraising events, especially the incredible Lee Davis and Lucas Bergquist. To all who stand by us both on and off the field, we are truly grateful. If you wish to sponsor the show, please contact me at chairman.skemutdfc@gmail.com or call me on 07766 054 548. All proceeds will go to Skelmersdale United Football Club. Thank you for your unwavering support. Hello and welcome to the second part of the show, and a warm welcome to our special guest today, Paul Jones, the manager of FC Isle of Man. Welcome to the show.
No, thanks for inviting me. It's great to be with you.
So you stepped in as interim manager in November 2023, and by the end of that season you took on the role permanently. How's that been for you?
Interesting, shall we say? In the early days, it was there was a little bit of a changing of the guards, so to speak, in terms of coming in, and it took a little while to get things how we wanted them, but so far this season we feel like we've been working in the way we want to work, and really enjoying working with the players. I know a lot of them from working in junior football or as previously as a club and an Ireland manager. So yeah, it's a fantastic experience, an opportunity that we've all got, which many people for many years have been wanting to have on the island, but it's only the last 4 seasons we've been able to do it.
Yeah, it's really difficult to understand the Isle of Man sort of football system. If you could explain that a little bit for us.
I'll do my best. Yeah, the Isle of Man FA are a county FA, so the same as Liverpool County FA or Westmoreland or whoever else it might be. So they have a league system on the Isle of Man, of which there are 4 leagues. So 2 first team divisions and 2 reserve team divisions. We call them combination teams. So there's about 26 teams on the Isle of Man, and most of them have 26 clubs, and most of them have 2 teams. So forever and a day, that's been what the local players have been exposed to. And because we're a county, that there's an opportunity to represent the Isle of Man in the old county cup competitions, and also in tournaments like the Island Games, which is where we would play Jersey, Guernsey, Anglesey, Faroe Islands when they used to enter, Bermuda, and a few other kind of international teams. So there's a kind of always been an opportunity to represent the Isle of Man internationally, as well as a county, and then we used to play in local football, and it would be like village against village or town against town in effect, and that's how it's run for years and years. But there's always been that feeling that there's a really good player pool on the Isle of Man, and coaching and managing pool, and they just weren't being provided the opportunity to really stretch themselves. Some would go away on trial at pro clubs, and a few got professional contracts and still are doing and doing okay in the game as an individual. But over the years, I think the national team won the county, the NLS Cup a couple of times, and represented England in the European Amateur Championships. And similar to Guernsey, when Guernsey did that, there was a feeling that maybe we should be offering a little bit more to that better group of players. And it just took the Isle of Man quite a lot longer to put it in place. But yeah, it's a really thriving local football scene, 11-a-side football scene in the male game, and then the players who are good enough and who have the commitment to do it get the opportunity to now play in the non-league pyramid, which is fantastic.
Paul, given how quite remote it is on the Isle of Man, you have a population of just under 84,000. In your opinion, how hard is it to attract squad players who meet the demands that you have for thriving in non-league football?
It's not at all, to be honest. I think the attraction to try and stretch yourself at the highest level possible is there. We've got more than enough players who want to do that. I guess the hard bit is any non-league kind of semi-pro football, and anyone involved in non-league football will know is just that sheer commitment required to go at it week in, week out. I think the local season on the Isle of Man is about 20 to 22 games for the season in a league, and we've played that to the halfway point this season as a group. So it's that kind of demands for training, travelling, week in and week out that is maybe the separator between those that are more than good enough and those who really want to do it and are willing to sacrifice enough to be able to make it happen. But I think that would be maybe the case or the difference at times between why some players play step 5 and not step 4 or step 3, and then maybe why some play step 3 and 4 and not step 1 and 2, because the commitments and the travel and the time away from home are bigger, and they can earn reasonable money maybe at step 5 and don't need that extra commitment to travel. And it's the same on the island really, in a microcosm really.
Just a quick question that's sort of come to my mind there. Do you have to actually reside on the island to play for the Isle of Man?
There's nothing formally written down, but that was the basis of why the club was created, was for opportunities for Manx residents. Over the last 4 years, we've had a few lads who've gone off to university since starting to play for the club, and some of them have stayed involved with us, and others have gone off and signed for clubs nearer their university. But this season, we're only selecting and travelling with players who actually live on the Isle of Man. Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, you managed the Isle of Man team also, didn't you? So.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Now we played a Isle of Man team going back several years ago, maybe over a decade ago. Were you manager at that particular time? Skelmersdale United, that is, bad.
Yeah, I don't think I was. I think it was Steve Burns at the time, potentially. I'm not sure it was me. It would have been just after I moved back to the Isle of Man, so I probably would have been part of the coaching setup at that time rather than managing. But it's so much has happened since then, Frank, that I'm struggling to remember it, I must admit.
Which brings me to my second question, really, is how did you end up in the Isle of Man in the first place?
I'm a Manxie, so I was born.
Oh, right, you were Belgian.
Yeah. So I grew up in the south of the island and played lots of sports, and football was my sport. And fortunately, I went off at 16 to play for Stockport County. So I did my old YTS and apprenticeship with Stockport, and did a year pro there as well, and was part of the squad. Although Paul Fletcher didn't put me into the team for the Southport's FA Trophy final game against Cheltenham, which we lost 1-0. But I've had a little bit of a stint around the non-league game at old kind of Vauxhall Conference and the league below that at the time, and did a little bit around the northwest and the northeast while I was working as a physio. And through a fairly circuitous route, I ended up coming back to the Isle of Man about 11 and a half years ago now. After my daughter was born, I was working for Norwich City in their academy down there as head of the sports science and medicine, and was loving it, but it didn't work from the family, so we moved back to the Isle of Man at that time, and I've been here ever since.
Yeah. So moving back to the Isle of Man team itself, you had a fantastic first season as manager. And it looks like you've...
No, I wasn't manager then.
Sorry?
The first season.
No, I'm saying your first season as manager, you had a good...
Okay.
Yeah.
It was all right. Like I wouldn't necessarily... The first full season was okay last season. I think the 6 months after I took over, we were trying to stay in the league. And lots of people will kind of understand the pressures when you're fighting in that kind of bottom 4, bottom 5 for most of the season. So that first kind of 6 months as I was interim was very tough. But we pushed on well in the second season in my head. But my first full season, and we certainly felt like we didn't get what we could have done out of the season. We left a lot of points on the pitch, and through lack of consistency and making mistakes, and it was we learnt a lot, but it was very much in our minds that we needed to do better this year. But we learnt a lot in that first season.
Yeah, and I'm sure you have exciting plans to keep that improvement going. Yeah,
very much so. Yeah, we're not. As much as this is a newish opportunity for everybody on the Isle of Man, we're not here to make up the numbers. We know, or we believe the player group are really capable. So, we want to keep progressing and keep pushing on like any team would do at this level of football.
And certainly the aim would be for the playoffs this season.
Very much so. Yeah, that's our ambition. I think last year we felt like we could have got there, but we had a really patchy run of form this sort of time of year last season, which kind of put the nail in our coffin, really. And although we finished the season really strongly, it wasn't enough. But this year, we're hoping that we could be consistent through the full season and hopefully finish somewhere in the top 5.
Yeah, and last weekend's match was something else, coming back from 2-0 down against Bearscope to win 3-2. Must have felt amazing, a little bit like a cup final victory in the end.
Yeah, very much so. I think the fans who were there will have been probably transported back a little bit to our first full season when we went up as in second place, as it were, but in the playoffs up into from Northwest Premier South, Division 1 South, where we had quite a lot of kind of late in the game victories, and we haven't seen that for a little while. So I think there was a few memories stirred of good times with that. I think we scored 3 goals in like 9 minutes, I think it was, to overturn Bearscope's 2-0 lead from half time. So yeah, I think it certainly shows the supporters that we've got a good group who are going to keep going all the way through to the end. And last year we'd have lost that game and probably conceded a few more goals. So I think that there's a feeling that the momentum's going in a good direction. But obviously we'll see over the weeks ahead.
How far do you think the club can go, Paul?
Yeah, so I made some quite bold claims when we started the club. So I was part of the group that kind of came up with the idea and formed the club, in effect, and made a bold claim of getting somewhere close to League 2 within 20 years or something like that. More to kind of signal hope and possibility rather than necessarily because I firmly believed in it. But I think from the playgroup we've got and the players we've got coming through, with a fair wind, a step 3 team isn't inconceivable from the Isle of Man. Under the current format that we've got at the moment, if that was to be sustained over a period of time, as we know the teams are at that level and the budgets they have, and the kind of the hybrid models that they have with their players, I think we're all volunteers, we're all amateurs. So if you're going to sustain a club at kind of step 3, then there'll probably need to be a change, or try and get to step 2. There'll need to be a change with that. But where we are at the minute with the players that we've got, the players that are maybe in England that might move back to the Isle of Man, who are Manx, born and bred, who have played at a high level, like Dean Pinnington, who's now back in our team after playing in the professional game. There's a few more that are, might come back at some point. I think step 3 isn't out of the realms of possibility, but it's a tough region, isn't it, to move up through the pyramid with so many teams throwing so much money at it each year that it would be very, very difficult. But I wouldn't think it would be beyond the playing abilities of the lads that we've got on Ireland. You
talk about the money that's being pumped into other teams. The Isle of Man, as a football team, is fan owned. Now, does that how does that work in terms of its in terms of its existence, and does that have, in your opinion, any hindrances that could see it sort of make it to step 3?
Well, how it works is a charity owns it. So Sporting Club Isle of Man is a charity owned by its members, and those members then own Football Club Isle of Man, and there's also a cycling team, so Cycling Club Isle of Man, who also function and race in Ireland and in England. So the vision was having like a fan-owned multi-sports club model. Because it's not just football where participants need to stretch themselves beyond the Isle of Man and have something more organised for them to do that based on the Isle of Man, rather than having to try and find it themselves. But I think, I don't think that model is working as well as we want it to. The football club, quite rightly, and the fan base around the football club has been the priority and is the priority, and I think a lot of the fans who are supporters of the football club are really only interested in that and not like maybe the bigger vision at the moment, which is fine. We were hoping that by having a fan-owned club that, you know, lots of people could make a little bit of a contribution, which would get us quite a long way. But it hasn't really turned out like that at the moment. And I think, you know, the fact that we're able to sustain 4 years worth of football, as you know, or you may know, Frank certainly will, that we pay for all the opposition to come to the Isle of Man, as well as ourselves, as well as the match officials, and no one's taking any money out of the club. So,
where does the majority of that funding come from? From within the club itself, or from external factors?
In the main. Yeah, so sponsors have been brilliant with us at Manx Telecom for the first 3 seasons, and now you know, our current partners are really important to that, and they maintain, or, you know, keep the ticket prices as low as they possibly can be. But, you know, like any club, you know, people through the turnstiles are hugely important for us, and you know, most of the time we function our home games at a loss, and, you know, if we had another 300 or 400 people in the ground, then you know, the club would be in a much better position. But, you know, we're hopeful that being 5th in the league now and looking like we might be able to sustain a push towards the top end of the table might bring a few more people in, and if we can do that and keep them this time around, you know, in the first season we were getting crowds of 2,000, 2,700, but that didn't maintain over year 2 and year 3, which made it really hard. So, you know, we need to kind of, you know, get people come in, get the community behind us, which they are to a point, but maybe get more people in the ground more often, and that makes getting to step 3 more achievable. It kind of, we're still in, I think, in almost a small business startup mode where, you know, you need to get to year 5, year 6 and still be in existence to know that it's a model that's going to work. You know, it's been tight the last few years. The tourist agency on the Isle of Man, Visit Isle of Man, have underwrote last season and are providing some underwriting to this season, in case we don't turn a profit. But that's not sustainable over a long period of time. You know, we kind of need sponsors and the community and supporters to back us. You know, I think you may or may not know that the club brings in anywhere between £1 and £2 million worth of revenue into the Manx economy through visitor spend. You know, that's a lot of money, and we're not really taking anything out of the kind of the Manx coffers. It's just all added value, and also, you know, the promotion and getting opportunities to do this and tell people a little bit about our island. You know, the club exists to promote our community and our island over and above, give people an opportunity to play high levels of football. So, you know, the club being in existence is I think, a community asset. Whether it stays in existence or not, I guess, depends on how much the community backs it over a long period of time. And I'm hopeful, but I don't think we can really say we've nailed it until we've got another couple of seasons under our belt.
Yeah, and certainly vouch for the help towards the Manx economy, because we had a lovely time in the Isle of Man last season. And the hospitality from the locals was fantastic. We actually, my vice chairman and I, we took our wives and we went for a longer weekend. We went from the Friday to the Monday and had an absolutely fabulous time. So for anybody that's not been over to the Isle of Man, you've got to get over there. It's fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. And I think quite a lot of clubs or teams and supporters are doing that, Frank. I think they're, you know, going Friday to Monday and making a little bit of a break of it, which is great. Like, and I hope in the future you'll come back when it's not even football related, and you know, come back and explore a little bit more of the island. That's the hope. I think certainly in the northwest there'd be quite a lot of people that'll maybe have lots of fond memories about the island when they used to come over on, you know, weekend or, you know, summer holidays and stuff like that. And we're hoping that, you know, they bring their kids or bring their grandkids, and it becomes somewhere that becomes a destination again. Because the welcome is good, and there is lots to do on the island over and above coming and watching your team on a Saturday.
Yeah. Listen, just moving slightly a little bit forward there, how do you actually prepare for the matches in the Northwest Counties? Because you've already alluded to the the planning and especially the travel, and players getting time off work. How does it all work?
Yeah, it's the players are super committed, but they can only be that because of their families and their workplaces. And we set out quite clearly what being part of the squad would mean for them, and then I guess it's for them to figure out whether that is something that they can kind of commit to or not. And there are players that have been unable to, or where it's got too much, or work maybe haven't been able to be quite so flexible, where they've kind of not been able to stay with us over the 4 years. So the kind of workplaces would offer like flexible working or coming in late, or opportunities to make time up later in the week or at a different time. I try and take into consideration at times in terms of not picking people for every squad all of the time, to try and share it out a little bit. But as a manager, you always want your strongest group available, but sometimes we don't do that in order to make sure that we've got players when we really need them, and to give back a little bit to families and give back a little bit to their workplaces. But yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy. I would maybe equate it to playing in the National League for our players. The time that they, as a semi-pro player in a National League, you're travelling, your overnights, your late homes, your early mornings, plus training, plus work. It's a huge commitment, and one that I'm really grateful that they're able to see the value in the club over above their own ambitions in the game, to have done that, for some of them, for 4 seasons back to back.
So what's a typical build-up to a Saturday game, for instance? Where does it all begin in terms of setting off, and how do you get over here? Is it ferry or plane?
It's early in the season. We will be on the boat. We'll get the boat into Liverpool. Often that boat is an early start. So we're meeting at 6 o'clock in the morning at the ferry terminal. The flight we took to Squires Gate 2 weekends ago was a 6:45 flight in the morning, I think. So everybody was at the airport for 6 o'clock. So more often than not, we're on the earliest planes or boats off island.
And that's on a Saturday morning, is it, for the...
On a Saturday morning, yeah. So we wouldn't... Yeah, we do that on the day. And a lot of the, it's cheaper to do the boat than the plane. So wherever we can do the boat, we will. And coming into this time of year, we'll be flying more because the boats don't go as often, or the times don't really work for us. So yeah, we'll be up early. We might, if we've got a bit of time, if it's a 3 o'clock kickoff, we'll be wandering around Liverpool potentially, trying to get the lads off their legs, but like filling time. We occasionally, if we fly into Manchester, we might stop at a hotel and have some breakfast. There's just somewhere to sit for a bit, and then we'll get to the grounds, play the game, and then it's either a mad rush to get back for a boat, depending upon how far away it is, or a plane, or we're a little bit more sedate, and we'll usually get back home anywhere between kind of 11 and 11:30 at night on the same day. So that's a Saturday game. The midweeks, we're on a 3 o'clock plane off the Isle of Man usually, so the lads will have a half day at work, meet at the airport for 2 o'clock, get over, hopefully there's no delays, have some food, get to the grounds, and then we stay overnight.
How do you get to the grounds? Do you get a coach once you've arrived?
We use Unicorn Travel, who are based in Wrexham, believe it or not, but the first season we was coming out of COVID, and you may or may not know that for that first season we played pretty much all of our first half of the season away from home, and because people couldn't come to the Isle of Man because of the restrictions that were in place, and we really struggled to find a coach company that would meet our requirements, and Unicorn were there for us, and we'd had a bit of a relationship with them, with the Isle of Men international team previously, and they've stayed with us through. They're brilliant. They're like a part of the club now. So we've got a great working relationship with them. So they'll pick us up midweek or Saturdays and get us over to the ground and back to the airport or the ferry terminal. And then on a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night game, we'll stay overnight in Liverpool at Liverpool Airport. We'll be at the airport for 7 a.m, get the first flight back to the Isle of Man, and then everyone will just go straight to work. And be back in work at kind of 10 o'clock in the morning. And that's our away experience. So, I think we've done 16 away games so far this season. So it takes its toll after a little bit of time if you've not got many home games in between.
It's certainly full on, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And some of the the managers that come over and the teams that come over, complaining about the early get-up to get to Liverpool Airport or Manchester, and then having to wander around Douglas Prom for a bit, and then getting a night out that in a hotel room that we've paid for, and then go back again on the Sunday. There's a few grumblings at times in terms of we shouldn't have to be doing this, but although I've got some empathy with them, I don't have a huge amount of sympathy because we do it 23 times a season and we don't get the overnight stay for the night out that they all get. So, I think it's just what needs to happen.
It's part of the experience of playing against FC Isle of Man.
It is, exactly.
Just to focus more on you personally, Paul, so you moved across into the manager's hot seat from being the club's sporting director. Can you tell us what facilitated that change, and did you feel ready to take on the role of manager?
I wouldn't say I felt ready. I think there might have been an expectation that I was going to be manager from the club's existence because I was the current manager of the men's national team on the Isle of Man. But myself and the group who set the club up were very clear that it was about providing opportunities for others in the first instance. And there was a candidate on the Isle of Man who became manager, Chris, in the first season, who very much deserved that opportunity. So we were hoping that was going to continue for a period of time. And in the first season, everything obviously went really well. And we got promoted, and it was great. But I think as a board of directors, you sat there looking at what's in the club's best interest, and we felt we needed to make a decision, kind of October, November in that second season, and I think in small communities, big decisions don't get often made because of the personal relationships involved, and things drift a little bit, and we made a decision, rightly or wrongly, as a board of directors, that we thought were in the best interest of the club, first and foremost, and what we thought was the right thing to do, and that's what we did. And then it was about, well, how do we then move forward from here? And I was asked to take on the role on an interim basis, and Chris would ask me at the time, do you want to be manager? And I honestly didn't know at that point, because I put so much time and energy into creating the club. And we all had decided that, my best role was in the boardroom rather than on the pitch. But needs must. So, I stepped up and did it. And things changed in the boardroom a little bit. And it probably worked out where, I felt my skill set was probably better utilised on the pitch so I applied for the job, and here I am. So it was an interesting kind of 6-month period. We made the decision as a board to let Chris go for what I believe were the right reasons at the time, but it was pretty tough in a small community, and a lot of people probably still haven't looked past the fact that they think that I made that decision so I could be manager, which is if people really think about how the club's been formed and how the club's been set up and the actions that we've taken up to this point, then it couldn't be further from the truth. But that perception will pervade, and I just have to kind of shrug it off and get on with it, I guess.
What position was the club in at that particular, when you actually took over, in terms of league positions?
I think we were down, below the bottom half of the table.
That's what I'm saying. So, you managed to get a 13th place finish, didn't you, come the end of the season? So,
yeah,
on the face of things, it appeared to be a good finish to the season.
Yeah, I think so in local football, people would leave clubs when they wanted to leave clubs, if you know what I mean. They'd move to a different team and it'd be always their decision. And the removal of a manager from a team isn't a thing in the Isle of Man. And as much as maybe, unfortunately, for you in your role, you've had to do it maybe more than you would like at times. It's fairly commonplace, isn't it, in non-league football? And as I say, we went through a very robust process around making that decision and felt that was the thing that we needed to do in the best interest of the football club. But it's not something our football community are used to, so it caused a little bit of a stir, and I think there's still some people that haven't forgiven me and the part I've played in that.
Well, listen, that's such a pity that, because listen, off the back of that now, you managed to get a 9th place finish last season. You're in the playoffs this season up to this point and doing really well. You've got a 5-point gap there. You're facing Pilkington on Saturday away from home. You won't be resting on your laurels there because they're in a particularly lowly position.
No, definitely not. I think we try and watch as much kind of footage as we can of the other teams. Obviously, we can't go to games as easily, maybe as other managers, to watch teams in advance of us playing them. So we kind of crib together as much information as we can. And they ran Bury close and they ran Ramsbottom close recently as well. And maybe in both of those games could have been in the lead before the other team scored. So this league is just so up and down at times, isn't it? And you can see Colne beating West Didsbury the other weekend. Just everybody can beat everybody. So unless you really switched on every time you turn up and play, then there's a chance you're going to get caught out. So we nearly got caught out on Saturday against Burscough because we were nowhere near where we should have been for the first 60 minutes. But you can't let that happen too often in this league. Otherwise, you're going to lose a lot of games.
Most definitely. Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. Thanks for coming onto the show. All the very best for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, and thanks for having me and for your interest in the club, and hopefully our paths cross again in the future.
Yeah, listen, it's a fascinating story. You've only been going, around about 5 years, 5 seasons. It's a remarkable journey so far.
Yeah, thank you, and yeah, onwards and upwards. It's not easy, but it isn't no matter what club you're at, is it? So a lot to respect to everybody who puts in a huge amount of time into non-league football. They're the bedrock of a lot of our communities, and you guys have got your clubs there and been there for an awful long time, and we're trying to create that same thing within our community at the minute. So we're loving being part of this non-league community, and we hope that we have many more great experiences in the years ahead.
And listen, you're only at the very, very beginning of the politics, believe me.
Yeah, I know.
Listen, all the best for the rest of the season. Take care. Thank you.
Cheers, Frank. Cheers,
Thanks,
AJ.
Paul.
Thank you.
Bye, mate.
Right.
Special shout out to all the businesses that support Skelmersdale United Football Club, Origin Sign Company, T&W Garners, 7PDS, Skem Express Cars 5005, Lease Car UK, RNB Auto Centre, SB Skills Solutions and Hey Presto Web Design. Thank you to everyone who donates to the club, supports our race nights, raffles and the lottery bonus ball scheme. And, of course, the last man standing. A special thanks to those who organise these fundraising events, especially the incredible Lee Davis and Lucas Bergquist. To all who stand by us both on and off the field, we are truly grateful. If you wish to sponsor the show, please contact me at chairman.skemutdfc@gmail.com or call me on 07766 054 548. All proceeds will go to Skelmersdale United Football Club. Thank you for your unwavering support. Hello and welcome to the third and final part of the show when we do our Northwest Counties roundup of results and our predictions for the weekend. And just like to say thank you very much again to Paul Jones, the manager of FC Isle of Man. What a cracking interview! What
a stunning guest he was. He's very, very insightful. Got a lot to talk about, and he's clearly very, very proud of the job that FC Isle of Man are doing within the Premier Division, and also what the Isle of Man as an island are doing for football and for its residents.
And it's worth mentioning at this point, as was mentioned earlier on in the clip, the big stories of the Premier League over the last week. Obviously, FC Isle of Man's fight back against Bearscough, losing 2-0 at half-time. They managed to win 3-2.
They did.
The form table doesn't lie. If you look at it, then top of the form table, of course, is the FC Isle of Man with 6
straight
solid wins in the league.
Nobody's coming close to that.
And unfortunately, Bearscough are at the wrong end of the form table.
Yeah, they're suffering a little bit of a dip there.
Second from bottom, only to
winless in 6, but they had the same form as Presser, which really just only by virtue of their goal difference are they not bottom. Winless in 6, unfortunately, just picked up that 1 point, a draw in one of their last games. So it's a bit of a tricky one that Dave Dempsey's got to try and reverse that little slump at the minute.
Yeah, it's a difficult one at the moment, but
it is.
That said, you know, we can't gloss over the fact that the other men are having a incredible season.
Yeah, they absolutely are. So they've just managed to sneak themselves into the playoff position. So they're currently in 5th. They're ahead of FC St Helens by 5 points, with having played a game more. But they also have a game in hand on Lower Brett, who are only a point ahead. And there's actually only 4 points between them and Bury in second place. So there's still a lot of yo-yoing that could be done before the end of the season. As Dave has mentioned, we are only halfway through. But you wouldn't fancy St Helens to not be... Isle of Man to not be there at season's end.
Listen, I've got a good feeling about the Isle of Man. I think they're going to do particularly well. I know knows what can happen in the lottery of the playoffs. But listen, Bury, they're the second form team, I think.
The big scorers this week as well. Absolutely demolished Longridge Town 8-0. 5 goals scored before half time, and in front of a bit of a capacity crowd as well. 2,983 fans packed into Gig Lane to see Bury win 8-0 at Longridge. What a game that was.
Yeah, it sounds like, certainly does. And then on the flip side of that, we mentioned the dip in form of West Didsbury, and I've sort of carried on a little bit there with Cone again.
You called it correctly, So,
predicted the win, which I'm really, really pleased with. But I don't know, because I've not delved sort of too much into the team sheets, but it makes you wonder whether there's been a big shift in personnel there at Cone. But maybe it's just down to the management team and the players bedding in and starting to pull these results together.
I think so. I mean, I couldn't see any big news from Colne as regards to a changing of the guard or any kind of particularly big signings that they had made. So something within that group of players and management has just clicked, because they are... Let me see where their form is taking them. They are...
Well, still at the moment...
They're 15th. They are 15th in the form table, having won 2 and drawn 1 of their last 6 games. They're not high scorers. They've only scored 6, so that accounts for 1 goal per game. But they've only conceded 7 as well, which makes them kind of one of the tightest defences in the division over the last half a dozen games. So something has clicked, and I think we at Speaking Frankly Football Show should probably investigate that with a bigger magnifying glass than what we are doing.
Yeah, I definitely think we need to. And then when you're looking at obviously they managed to pull themselves off the bottom of the table.
Yes, they have.
And Prestwich have replaced them. Now there's only a 4-point gap, albeit they played a game more, between Cone and Pilkinson, who've obviously got the Isle of Man at the weekend. So we'll look at Cone versus Squires Gate. I think that gap could be closed. Listen, we'll come to those predictions later on, but it's certainly an exciting.
I think it's really hotting
Premier
up at both the top and the bottom. Yeah, it really is. As you say, there's only a 4-point gap between Colne and Pilks. Both of them, though, have sort of quite identical runs of form, really. As I said, 2 wins and 1 draw from the last 6 games. So Colne with this home game against Squires Gate, who themselves are on quite a poor run of form. 1 win and 1 draw. 15 goals shipped in 6 games.
They only lost narrowly to FC St Helens at home on Saturday. That said, they scored a goal deep into injury time. Maybe made it look a little bit more respectable.
Let me just have a look. Trying to find there it is. Yeah. So it was a hat trick from Chris Hill that kind of secured the victory for FC St Helens. But Squires Gate, they certainly did run them close. I think the league table positioning doesn't really belie them. That being said, FC St Helens aren't known for winning by large majorities. You know, their last handful of games, they've scored 6 and conceded 6. 2 wins and 2 draws and 2 losses from their last 6 games, and they're not exactly big scorers. Themselves. 45 goals scored in all competitions and 34 conceded. So when they do win, it's by a narrow margin. So I wonder whether that's more FC St Helens' profligacy and efficiency in front of and defending their goal rather than it is Squires Gate.
Well, their form's not been particularly good either, has it? I mean,
they've dropped off a little bit in the last.
One win in 4, 2 draws amongst that. Not particularly bad, but not great either.
It's not the ones that you'd really want to see if you're a FC St Helens fan. But they have kind of stabilised their position at the towards the top. Like I say, they're 5 points outside the playoff places, but there's plenty of wiggle room there, and that sort of coincides with West Didsbury and Chorlton's drop in form as well. Yeah.
But listen, other results there. Lower Breck. Listen, Lower Breck are, obviously a good team. They're in 4th place at the moment, but absolutely battered Glossop. I've not spoke to Richard, so I've not got the inside story on that, but that will certainly hurt him.
Yeah, he won't be keen to talk too much in detail about that one, really. But I do wonder whether it comes back to whether Glossop, given their remoteness in Britain, are struggling to attract players. I don't know. I can only really speculate. I'm sure Brodie could.
I think it's difficult. If you've got a few bob there, and they did, a few seasons ago.
Yeah.
When they were doing particularly well.
Yeah.
But you can attract players. It doesn't matter where they are. We know that. We know how fickle the world of football is, and players, they'll go for an extra £5 anywhere.
Yeah,
not all, because we've got some really loyal ones as well. So I don't want to sort of
paint them all with the same brush. No,
definitely not. But listen, that's got to hurt. But listen, the other big result, South Liverpool versus Chadderton. 10 goals all told. 4 to South Liverpool and 6 to Chadderton. Once again, Chadderton, another one of those form teams you'd expected to win that one. Yeah,
and indeed they did, but they made life difficult for themselves. They were 3-0 up at half-time. You'd think by that point they'd be coasting. Jack Worrell, Muis Bibiri Bello, and Robert Worrell, getting the goals to put them in quite a firm commanding position there.
Listen, I have to backtrack a little bit, because Chadderton, that was their first win in 4 games. They'd lost 3 games on the trot. So, a good win for them in the end. But
yeah, they've made life a little bit difficult for themselves.
It suggests, though, the lack of form may be something to do with more defensive issues with Chadderton.
I think so. I mean, 3 of the goals that South Liverpool scored came after the 80th minute. So Chadderton by that point were kind of 6-1 up. They looked like they were coasting. But then something kind of switched off at the back, and I think they can probably sort of count themselves lucky that it was only 3 because South Liverpool roaring back there.
Yeah, listen, I know that was an away game, but I think Chadderton, they've had their pitch dug up, getting it replaced by a plastic pitch. So I would imagine most of their games are all away from home.
Yeah.
So maybe the inconsistency is to do with that and having to play games at different venues.
Yeah. The travel as well will probably be taking its toll on them.
Yeah, most definitely. So listen, going into we'll come to our division, but we'll go to the Division 1 South now. The results over the weekend there.
Yeah, absolutely. So
no big sort of shocks.
Not particularly, but I do want to start at Foley Mere. So we talked about them last week, and they had a changing of the manager.
That's right.
It was sort of generally considered that the former manager and his team were well liked, well respected, and Foley Mere, without being spectacular, were sort of quite solid. They weren't exactly looking over their shoulders. They took on Winsford United in the new manager's first game, and they lost, but they only lost 3-2, whereas I think most of them would have had them down to lose by a little bit more than that. So William Taps scored both of their goals. Both of them were penalties. But Winsford had come into this game on the back of sort of being quite free scoring, really. I mean, they'd hammered our mates at Darwin 6-1. So you would have thought, kind of on that basis, they'd have scored a few more. But Foley Mere played them close and gave them something to think about in those last few minutes. Stafford coasted to a victory over New Mills, but I think the big stories kind of come at Alsager Town, and first Runcorn.
Yeah, well, Runcorn continuing that run of good form.
A little revival.
And Wolverhampton Sporting Community sort of come into a rich vein of form as well, haven't they?
Yeah, they have.
Two teams sort of down
the lower reaches of the division.
Yeah,
they have, but Runcorn picked up another win against Camel Laird 1907. A 4-3 win, so it's a great one if you're a Runcorn Town fan. Plenty of scope for celebration there. They were 3-1 up at half time, and then managed to secure that kind of 4th one just 2 minutes after the restart. Camel Laird scored 2 goals to kind of put them back into the contest, but Runcorn holding on for those vital 3 points. So they're now only, after having been at the bottom of the table, they're now only a point behind Alscott Heath and Foley Mere, 2 points behind Wolverhampton Sporting Community, and 3 points behind Camel Laird up in 13th. So there's all to play for.
Management team there at Runcorn Town, isn't it?
I honestly, they're a bit like Colne. I have no idea what's going on there in the intricacies of the running of the club. I just know that they're experiencing a revival of kind of epic proportions that's propelled them off the bottom of the table.
I'm certainly hoping I've got my club right, but I think Runcorn Town, they brought a management duo in there, and I think they've recruited from an established Sunday League team, a good Sunday League team, and due to that fact, they've obviously hit a rich vein of form, and certainly look as the only trouble with this is that when you know all these form teams now seem to be the ones that are in the same predicament as Runcorn Town, bar 1 or 2. So you you've just got to continue doing what you can do and just carry on winning and not focus on the teams above you. It certainly seemed that Runcorn Town, a team that looked very much like us in terms of points accrued when we first started this show, 6 weeks ago. They've had a remarkable change in fortune.
Yeah, 4 straight wins. So that's put them at 6th in the form table, kind of ousted only by your perennial heavyweights, really. Your Stafford Town, your Sandbach United, Winsford United are all kind of headlining that little form table. But then Runcorn Town and Wolverhampton Sporting Community, to their credit, are up there as well. So I think, very much like the Premier Division, it's actually really tight at the top and the bottom. And who's actually to say who will end up where come the end of the season? Little bit of a shout out to Eccleshall as well. They visited Alsager Town and won 3-2. An 87th minute goal by Jay Ford, being the decisive goal that kind of gave them the 3 points, despite Adam Dahu of Alsager Town notching himself a brace. Eccleshall kind of held on, and Alsager are one who, at the other end of the scale, are in a bit of a free fall at the minute. So they have managed to consolidate 3rd place in the table, but it's now
one win in 6 games. Is it 1 win?
Yeah,
and a draw, 3 losses. 4 losses. Is it? It's not. It's not got a good time for them. They need to.
No, it's.
They need to regroup if they're gonna stay in that playoff.
Yeah, they certainly are. They've got Sandbach United breathing down their necks, just kind of 4 points behind them, and then Abbey Hulton, Asheville, and Cheaton Heath, all kind of 2 points back from Sandbach. So if you're an Alsager Town fan, you're probably looking over your shoulder as to that playoff position.
It's worth said there is a 6-point gap between them and going out of the playoffs. Asheville are sitting there on 31 points.
They are, but given Alsager's kind of free fall at the minute, you do kind of have to wonder. Interestingly enough, we reported a couple of weeks ago that Alsager Town's duo in management, Lee Duckworth and Ben Goddard, both left the club. As was mutually agreed with the board. Lee Duckworth has now managed to secure himself new employment as manager of Northwich Victoria.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so that's a challenge in its own right for him. And it'll be interesting to see how his old town, Alsager Town, do as the season progresses, really. A little shout out as well to our friend Steve Wilkes, who was the guest on episode 3 of the show. His team, Ramsbottom United, were just confirmed as the North West Counties Football League Club of the month for October. So big congratulations to Steve,
well done, Steve,
Harry, and all the team at Ramsbottom United. Very well done.
Brilliant. I'm moving to our division now.
Yeah.
No big surprises in terms of results.
Not entirely, no. So
I think we predicted most of the right outcomes for that.
Reasonably, yes, we did. So I think I only got 2 wrong out of our predictions, if you like. I honestly thought that
in that particular division.
In that particular division, I believed that Holker Old Boys would take the result against Bacup Borough, but in fact it was a last-minute penalty by Holker's Jamie Hodgson, which got them a draw, as Bacup took the lead after an hour and looked set to hold on to that, but Holker came back for the draw there. The other one was our result, Stem against.
Could I just mention Bacup Borough? Bacup Borough's manager, Brent Peters, 27 years as the manager of Bacup.
Really?
Incredible story. There's a lot of YouTube videos out there of the man and his methods and his madness as well. But what a guy, what a legend in non-league football he is. And for people that don't know, he signed David May.
Manchester United's David May.
Yeah, he signed him once upon a time, and so I had him playing for him. Yeah, listen, it's an incredible story, incredible man, often called by his associates the Fergie of non-league football.
I think you might be right there. Although he'll not be pleased with that Fergie time equaliser that his team conceded against Holker.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, it'd be a good one for the show to kind of talk about his longevity, really.
Yeah, listen, it'd be great to have him on the show. Whether he's too busy with his own show, I don't know. But yeah, I'd love to. If you're listening, Brent, we'd love to have you on the show.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, he's listening. And he said no. No, I'm joking.
Well, it was worth a try.
Yeah.
But no, I think other than that, I think most of the results in Division 1 North kind of went the way that we thought they would. Darwin turned on the style against Daisy Hill and won 4-1. Braces each from Connor Hughes and Jack Foster. Kind of seeing off the visitors there. Atherton LR did the business in style against Garstang. So well done to Davy Jones and his team.
Our guest last week, absolutely fabulous bloke.
Absolutely. So if you haven't listened to that episode, I urge you to listen to that one. I think it was one of my favourite people to interview. And one of my
fantastic young rising manager, just 25 years of age. It defies logic.
Yeah, it does.
It really does. The only result that I'd say shocks me a little bit was the narrow margin between Route 1 Rovers
and Blackpool. I knew you were going to say that. Yeah,
they're both capable of scoring goals. Now that is my worry in terms of us floating above anyone, because we're going to come to obviously our latest defeat. But Route 1 Rovers, if indeed they are still losing games, but they're picking up results as well.
They are.
One thing's for sure, they're certainly scoring goals, whereas against Nelson on Saturday, we managed to ship 5 without reply.
Yeah, we did. So Route 1 lost 3-2 against Blackpool. And 3-2, beg your pardon, against AFC Blackpool. But the Monday beforehand, they took on Armthorpe Welfare in the West Riding County Cup second round and won 6-3. So they're not strangers.
They score goals, don't they?
They can score goals, yeah. Unfortunately, yeah. So we will come to kind of the crux of the matter, which is Skem's defeat against Nelson. Now, when we played Nelson at the start of the season, it was like our third or fourth game. We lost 6-0, and afterwards, Tommy Lawson said that he believed that we had seen the champions elect.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, and I remember that game sort of very, very well. We looked short on match fitness. We weren't kind of together in the same way that we were. But kind of having seen the results that had come our way recently, I was sort of quite confident that we could improve our result this time around against Nelson. And indeed we did. We conceded 1 goal less than what we did last time around. I know it bears...
I don't know whether to laugh or cry.
There's always a positive. There's always positives, Frank. You've just got to find them. But I think it probably says more for how impressively Nelson played. I mean, they looked like a team that were ready for that big jump. I was speaking to some of their fans after the game, and it transpired that Nelson had been given a reprieve by the league.
That's right. Yeah.
So they were they'd finished sort of bottom or near bottom of Division 1 North last season, and the only reason that they hadn't been relegated out of the Northwest counties was by virtue of them having a better record across the league. The best of the worst. Yeah, that's the term I was looking for. Sorry, still very new to this non-league malarkey. But what had also happened is that they had been the receipt of a very rich benefactor who had brought a lot of money to the table, invested within the structure of the stadium, the infrastructure of the club itself, and then brought in players who he could afford to pay. And I think that probably spoke a bit more volumes about the gap in circumstance between the two teams right now. So Nelson, with their victory, managed to consolidate their hold on second place within the division, and I think they're well placed to go up via the playoffs. It was annoying, really, because he made a habit of this in the first game. Jude Entwistle came on with about a quarter of the game left to go and just kind of helped himself to 2 goals to kind of widen the margin. And I think if you ask a lot of the Nelson fans who were there that day, particularly in the second half, when we made quite a good account for ourselves, it wasn't really a 5-0 win for them.
Well, let's sort of dissect it a little bit. Conceding an extremely early goal, 3rd minute, Max Kane has intercepted a poor back pass.
Yes, he has gone round the goalkeeper.
So you've helped Nelson on the way.
Yeah.
The second goal, Billy Priestley, once again a free header. No great command of the 6-yard box. Lack of concentration, definitely a lack of concentration, which has helped them to the second goal.
Yeah.
That gives you a uphill struggle.
Yeah.
Come the second half, there's a change of formation, shape, and
a couple of players as well.
Yeah, and substitutions, which balanced it a little bit more, and we looked more capable. We were going forward. We had opportunities
to get the ball into the box.
But we sort of failed in that final third.
Yeah,
but
we did.
At that stage, you're thinking to yourself, I'll take a 2-0 defeat.
Yeah, absolutely we did. We should point out as well that at 2-0 we conceded a penalty, quite a contentious one.
How can I forget that?
Quite a contentious one, and Joe Langford, what a save. Absolutely astonishing.
Premiership standard.
Yeah, so if you're listening to this, Joe, a big round of applause from the two of us here at Speaking Frankly.
Because it's not been a very, very pleasant season for the goalkeeper.
No.
It has to be said. I know goalkeepers are there for stopping shots, but
there's only so much that you can do really when the teams are sort of so much greater in their threat at goal, and there are mistakes that are going to be made by us. We aren't experienced enough to be sort of quite savvy in defence, and I think that certainly sort of spoke volumes for the first goal and the last 2, which were both kind of tap-ins on the basis of speed down the right wing and a low ball into an unmarked man. And unfortunately, like I said...
We can't even blame that on fitness, though, can you? I mean, that's...
No, I'm not blaming it on fitness. I'm blaming it on us just having that experience of switching off and that inexperience of maintaining your focus and trying to keep it at 3-0 as it was by then.
Listen, I see these blokes on a week-to-week basis, at least a couple of times a week. I pick players up from St Helens, from Ormskirk, the lads that come from Liverpool on the train, and these individually are really talented young players.
Yeah.
The emphasis being on the young. There is no daddy to support them.
No, we haven't got anybody of experience in the team. We've not got kind of that hardened player who can stop the lads from hitting the panic button at some point during the game. Who can just say, "Look, steady lads, just keep playing your football and it'll come." I think at half time, Tommy got that message across to them because when we came out for the second half, we did look quite free-flowing. We were moving the ball into good areas. Keeney Mills, when he came on, he was making some great runs down that right-hand side. It was just, unfortunately, Skem couldn't collectively test the goalkeeper or at times kind of get the ball into the box. And, that was where the dividing lines were drawn, really.
So a mixture of lack of experience, lack of concentration, but by and large, I've seen a group of players develop there over the last few weeks that seem to be bonding, which is an important process.
Yeah, it is.
But we are very much learning, or they are very much learning as they go on. And listen, we go back to what we said before. It's a building process. We're looking for stability and unity, and the only way that you're going to do that is by showing loyalty to these lads, and they've certainly shown that loyalty in abundance to us.
We've got some players who are coming up on 20 appearances for us this season, and I know that you'll either laugh at that one or you'll think 20 appearances, that doesn't sound like anything. But we've had an overturn in players who have, come up to the club and then left for one reason or another. But we've had a core group of about 6 of them who have stayed through from sort of fixture number 1, and they're still here, still playing and still turning out for the club. So the thing that we can do right now is to say thank you for keeping on coming back, and we promise you that we still have your back.
Yeah, most definitely. And, that sort of question is still in the air there and in the balance in terms of whether we can avoid relegation. But listen, we keep on trying, we keep on going. There's games there. There's games that are winnable. We don't know how many teams are going down. No. But listen, we can't rely on any favours either. We've just got to do what we possibly can do. And then come next season, wherever we are, we have an established team that can compete at whatever level we end up, whether we still in the north. And I believe if we're in the North West Counties Division 1 North with that team next season, it's a totally different scenario. I believe now, if you take this core group of players that we have now and you could restart the season, then you're looking at a totally different outcome as well. But I believe so. It is what it is. Yeah. We knew it was going to be difficult at the beginning of the season. If anybody could wave a magic wand, if anybody could throw money our way, it changes things. You can bring more established players in.
You don't even have to be a millionaire.
Yeah, you don't even have to be a millionaire, no. You just have to be daft like me. But listen, that sort of rounds up the results. We come pretty much to our predictions as we normally do.
Yeah, we have. So we have quite a voluminous week of footballing fixtures. So for the purposes of time and concentration, mainly from me, not from you, we will just cover the league games that are coming to you on Saturday, because there is a few. And we'll start in the Premier Division. So we have
tonight's fixture.
Is there? Oh God, there is. Sorry.
Well, when I say tonight, let's be honest about it, because we're all about honesty, aren't we? We record the show on a Thursday night, but by the time it's out, it will be Friday. So tonight we have a game, and once again, I said there that Chadderton, we were talking about Chadderton, they're home to Prestwich Hayes, but they're actually playing at Avro, so that's probably where they're playing their home games at the moment.
Yeah, it is, yeah. So sorry about the loss of concentration. I did tell you it was going to be an issue. So Chadderton, they had that almighty scare against AFC Liverpool. Prestwich Hayes are... They're not having a good run of form at the minute. They're at the bottom. And I do see them staying there for at least this fixture. So I'm going to say that's a Chadderton win.
I think Chadderton, like you said, they had that win over South Liverpool. What are you looking for?
I'm looking for a pen. So usually Frank leaves me a pen.
Yeah. Somebody keeps pilfering me pens. You know what I think it is? I think Rowena sweeps up after me. And listen, you can use my pen.
Oh, thank you.
Use my pen. But you know what?
You've been left with a highlighter to mark out the fixtures.
Just another hack here, right, is you can do this, look.
Oh, there, you can highlight the actual
You can highlight
club.
the team that think you're going to win. That's just an idea. That's a little hack of ours. We're all for hacks in this business here.
You can tell he's done 5 more episodes of a podcast than I have.
No,
It's got the experience.
Yeah, but listen, the other thing, of course, is I know Berry had a basically under-23s team during the week in the Macron Cup, but still Chadderton managed to beat Berry 4-3, whatever way you look at it. So that'll be a confidence builder in itself. So yeah, I'll go for Chadderton. Prestwich Hayes, they're doing nothing at the moment unless there's a big huge turnaround.
Not really, not for this game at least.
No.
So that moves us on into the Saturday fixtures, as I sort of jumped ahead of earlier on. There are 3
tomorrow's fixtures. Just to confuse.
Stop it, Frank! So on Saturday, we've got 3 2:00 fixtures. We'll start with Cheadletown against Longridge Town.
I'm glad you spotted that.
Why? What have you got?
Oh, I didn't realise. Why is the 3 2:00 kickoffs? We seem to be getting more and more 2:00 kickoffs these days.
Absolutely no idea at all.
Answers on a postcard.
Yeah, please phone in. Anyway,
I can imagine why Pilks are kicking off at 2:00. The Isle of Man will get away handy, won't they?
Yeah, of course, which you will know if you would listen to Paul.
Yeah,
in the last set. If you've skipped ahead to this, don't do that. Go back.
No.
To Cheadletown. So they're in middle of the park, really, aren't they? They're 15th. Sort of steady run of form. Nothing spectacular. Whereas Longridge kind of coming off that. That hammering by Berry, which won't have done them any good. But there is only a points difference between the two of them. I just feel like I want to say Cheadletown, purely on what Longridge have been through.
Well, I've gone for a draw. That's why I've stretched over to get the pen, and it dropped on the floor. So all that palaver was so I can't highlight. Well, I could highlight both.
You could highlight the entire.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, you're going for
Cheadletown. I'm going for a home win now.
I'm going for a draw all day long.
Okay.
Now, Colne versus Squires Gate.
That is a wonderful fixture. If you're a neutral, I know this sounds silly, but that's a great game to be looking at. So Colne on a really good run of form. Like obviously we've talked about it. We're going to try and get a Colne representative to kind of give us more insight into how on earth they've turned this around so well. Squires Gate, kind of not on a spectacular run of form by any stretch of the imagination. Some kind of inconsistent performances there. So I am going for a home win here.
Yeah, I'm definitely going for Colne. I think the sort of revival in fortunes, the confidence has got to be fairly high there at the moment. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Colne all day long for that one.
Go.
Listen, this is providing because it's really, really frosty at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's been a lot of hail, sleet and snow.
Yeah.
So a lot of these games could be called off, and Colne could be one of those because it's in a very remote cold area. So listen, providing these games are on, always check before you travel. But I'll go for Colne. Brings us to Pilks versus FC Isle of Man. Like you said, we just spoke to Paul earlier on.
He said they're taking nothing for granted, but I think that his team will be quietly confident of a victory here, even in an away game. So I'm saying an away win for the FC Isle of Man over Pilks.
Yeah, definitely FC Isle of Man all day long for me.
Go. So the 3:00 kickoffs.
Yes.
And we are starting with our neighbours at Burscough, hosting Earlham.
Right. I mean, we've already mentioned the form table doesn't lie. The poor run has continued. But what I would say is they've signed Sam Sheen, which is an extremely good signing. And if they can get things together again, and I think they certainly will with him in the team.
I wonder whether the signing kind of comes a little bit too soon to affect this game. I do have to wonder. So I think just on the purposes of form at the minute, I am going to say an away win for Earlham there.
Well, yeah, listen, Earlham have lost one game in the last 6. Listen, I'd love Burscough to win and get back to winning ways, but I do see an Earlham win there, but possibly a draw. But stick my neck out and say an Earlham win.
So that brings us to our mate Richard Brodie as his Glossop North End team welcome FC St Helens to the Asgard Engineering Stadium in Derbyshire.
Yeah, listen, off the back of a 5-0 defeat, I don't think he'll be happy.
Nope.
Whether that's down to personnel injuries, whatever, whether it's a blip. Listen, everybody you can have a day off, can't they?
Yeah.
And certainly, listen, they've been doing, Pritchard's been doing a good job at Glossop. He's doing a steady job, and
Yeah.
I think he'll be keen to get back to winning ways on that one.
Yeah.
And listen, I think Glossop North End are just gonna pinch that one myself.
So looking at the form table, these two teams are absolutely identical.
I know.
2 wins, 2 draws, 2 losses, and a 0 goal difference. So conceding the same as what they have scored. On paper, you would have to say a draw all day long. And I will take that paper odds there and say a draw.
I noticed that you put the marker highlighted.
I've highlighted
right across
all the
there,
way
so
along
I
the
already
fixture.
knew that. Litherland Remacher versus Abbey Hay. Now, of course, Litherland had that really good win the other day, didn't they? Last week against.
Yeah, who did they beat last week? It was a really good result.
You have to go through your statistics. Should be really prepared here, but there's so much paper
AFC
involved in this.
Liverpool. That was it.
AFC Liverpool, yeah. Well, listen, AFC Liverpool topsy turvy. Sometimes the credentials as a playoff team are there to be seen, and other times,
Absolutely nowhere to be found.
yeah. But based on the fact that where at Abbey Hay, they
So their form tables of 2 wins from 6. Litherland Remacher 1 win from 6. Abbey Hay 14th in the division. Litherland Remacher 19th.
well, I'm going for a draw.
You're gonna go for a draw though.
I'm going to go for a draw, yeah.
Right.
Because the big game, the big game in the division, there's Lower Breck versus Bury.
Yes.
It's sort of the Mank Merseyside derby.
Yeah, it's the absolute M56 derby, if you like. Yeah. So Lower Breck obviously coming off that really good win against Glossop, 5-0, and I think they're sort of on a bit of a canter, really, as far as recent results are concerned. Sort of 3 wins from 6 with a lot of goals scored and not an awful lot conceded. That being said, though, it's Bury, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Bury always carry that danger tag and possibly even a favourites tag. So
there's that aura surrounding them.
There really is.
And I think that psychologically gives them an edge before they've even started the game.
Not least to the hundreds of travelling fans that are going to be making their way across the motorway to Lower Breck.
I don't know whether there'll be 22 men still on the pitch at the end of that game. That's my prediction. I think that'll be a rough and tumble game, that most definitely. But yeah, listen, Bury all day long for me.
I think so too. Padiham against Barnoldswick Town. So Barnoldswick played a couple of nights ago in a cup game in midweek and were beaten 4-1 by AFC Blackpool. Their domestic form doesn't account for much better either. Just looking around there. Actually, it's probably a little better than I was sort of giving them credit for. So 3 wins from 6, 9 goals scored, 8 conceded. But I guess it's just their cup form that kind of went out the window. But that's all right. Padiham, really good run of form at the minute. 4 wins from 6, 1 loss. Home advantage, you've got to sort of say Padiham, really.
Yeah, it's a tough place to go. It's a tough pitch to play on as well.
Burnley
So that could
way,
play
isn't
a
it?
significant part in the game itself. So yeah, I'm going to go for a Padiham home win.
Assuming it goes on because it's in that remote area of Burnley.
Yeah, another game.
So just again check your fixtures before you travel. Stockport Town versus AFC Liverpool.
Yeah, locked together, a point between them. Listen, that's for me, is a draw all day long.
I would have said a draw. However, Stockport Town have got really good run of form recently. 4 wins from 6. Although they did lose their last 2, which kind of emphatically halted their 4-game winning run. You'd like them to kind of get back to business against an AFC Liverpool team that are just kind of high and low all in one go at the minute. So I would say Stockport Town for this one.
Yeah, most definitely.
Not
most definitely. I've gone for the
So
draw.
what are you saying? And then the last game of the Premier Division is West Didsbury and Chorlton at home to Ramsbottom United. Now, once upon a time, you'd have probably said that West Didsbury and Chorlton would have taken this purely by their strength in numbers and then also by their form. But their form has dropped off recently. Obviously, they were the victims of the Colne revival, the latest victims, the Colne revival. And Ramsbottom have just been named Club of the Month for good reason. Some really good form of late.
Listen, they're just steadily going along with their business, aren't they? They're
Quietly.
just doing quietly without...
Yeah. The only thing that's noisy as far as Ramsbottom United are concerned is that generator.
Yeah,
which I
definitely.
keep going back to. But I think I think Ramsbottom and Steve Wilkes are probably smart enough and savvy enough to kind of put the noise of the West Didsbury and Chorlton fans to the back.
Yeah, because there'll be a big crowd there.
Yeah, absolutely. There always is. So
yeah, but we go for Ramsbottom.
I'm going for Ramsbottom now. So we'll jump to the First Division South.
Yeah, we'll run through that one a little bit quicker than we do with the Premier League. But there's less games involved there.
There are, yeah. So all of their games are 3 o'clock kickoffs. Once again, just check the socials before you travel to save yourself fuel and risk involved. So Alscott Heath against Barnton. So Alscott Heath are 16th and Barnton are 12th. Just a handful of points difference between them in the domestic table, and I think their form table is sort of quite the same as well. Yeah, so Barnton winless in 6. Alscott Heath just the 1 win, but 22 goals shipped over those 6 games. I'm seeing a draw here.
Yeah, listen, I'll go along with that. Yeah, definitely draw that.
Now, Alsager Town, 3rd in the division, but experiencing quite a extenuous blip in form here. Coming up against Market Drayton Town, who are 10th. So nothing particularly spectacular, but you having not played during the week, so their game was, like a lot of them, frozen off. I'm going to say an away win here.
Right, surprised there. I'm going for Alsager. I think they've got to have at some stage they've got to have a revival, and it's got to start there. Which moves on to Foley-Mere versus Runcorn Town, a sort of bottom 4 fixture.
Yeah, it is. But
this could see Runcorn move out of the relegation zone. And Foley-Mere
into it.
So
yes, it could. So there's everything to play for here. Runcorn obviously on a really, really good run of form. Foley-Mere were never on a particularly bad run of form, but having brought in new management and started his season with that close run against Winsford, you'd fancy the two kind of movements to clash here. So I'm going to say a draw.
Yeah, it's got all the hallmarks of a draw, but I'm going to go for Runcorn Town.
Okay, fine. New Mills against Sandbach United. So New Mills are kind of middle of the park, really. They're sitting 8th, whereas Sandbach United are kind of fighting for that promotion spot and kind of breathing down the necks of Winsford, Alsager, etc. I'd take an away win here.
Yeah, I'll go for Sandbach as well.
Cool.
Shawbury United, bottom of the table against Stafford.
Top of the table. Yeah. Who's your money on there, Frank?
Well, listen, you never know with these things, do you? I mean, they've only lost 2 games all season, Stafford.
Yes.
Not that that's anything to go by. Shawbury just seem to be in free fall, don't they?
Yeah, they absolutely are. Yes, at the bottom of the form table as well, winless in 6.
I think Stafford are going to be too strong for that.
I think so too. Yeah, they'll get the business done there.
Yeah.
Then Stockport Georgians against Abbey Holton. So Stockport Georgians kind of 11th in the form table, 11th in the domestic table.
Abbey Holton are in the playoffs.
And Abbey Holton are in the playoffs, starting to do a few bits here and there. You'd fancy an away win here, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I'm going for Abbey Holton.
And then the last game is
the W Derby.
Yes, exactly. Winsford versus Wolverhampton. Separated by no letters in the alphabet by quite a long stretch of Cheshire countryside. Yeah, that's looking like a home win for me. I can't see anything other than Winsford doing the business here.
Yeah, the only thing I'd say is that Wolverhampton have done particularly well in recent matches. So it might be closer than we imagine.
Possibly.
But yeah, I think I'll definitely go for a Winsford home win.
That brings us finally to the First Division North, where there are 6 games going on.
None of which include us.
So we've
got another free weekend.
We have a free weekend. So, we'll start at Ashton Town at home to Droylsden. So Ashton Town experiencing something of a long-term revival in form, obviously putting together a decent streak as far as form would have it, against a Droylsden side who patching themselves up, if you like. So they're second in the league as far as form is concerned, 5 wins from 6 and 1 loss, and I can't really see anything changing there, to be honest. Ashton, 3 wins from 6, scored less than they have conceded. I'd say a Droylsden win here, but only just.
A win to who?
Win to Droylsden.
A win to who? A win to who? the word when it came out then, I said winter. Winter who? Right, a win to Droylsden. Yeah, listen, I'll go along with Droylsden. I think Ashton is struggling to score goals at the moment. Droylsden. Yeah. Exton Villa versus Nelson.
So Exton Villa, again, another team with 5 wins from their last 6 matches. And Nelson, 5 wins from 6 matches. Only really difference is that Nelson appear to be an awful lot more free scoring. Yeah.
There's a bit of firepower there, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. But Exton have the tighter defence. Just conceded 5 goals in 6 games, which is the second least in the division at this time. Again, they're a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde team. You're not really sure which Exton you're going to face, but I still think that Nelson will be too much for them.
Yeah, I'm going for Nelson as well.
Yeah. So that's going to take us way up north to Garstang, who welcome Steeton to the Riverside Stadium.
Now, this is a difficult one to call for many reasons, because we obviously want
a draw.
Well, we want to. Do we want a draw or not? Because we're staying focused then on Steeton, who are 16 points ahead of us, whereas Garstang are only
12.
10.
Is it 10?
10 points ahead of us.
10 points ahead of us, pardon me.
They'd go 11 points ahead of us if they draw.
Yeah, they will. It's not nice at all, but they've got 1 win from 6, 4 goals scored, 16 conceded, whereas Steeton are on a bit of a mini revival at the minute. 3 wins and 3 losses, 10 goals scored, 11 conceded. They win 1 and then they lose 1. That is the pattern of the last 6 games. I feel like something's going to have to break the cycle eventually. I don't know whether I can see it happening here. My initial thought was that it was going to be a draw, but I'm now sort of edging towards a Steeton win.
Yeah, I'm going for a Steeton win purely because I want them to win.
Best interests.
Nothing against Garstang, but they're just above us, and I don't want them to gain any confidence whatsoever.
No.
Harsh, but true and realistic for us.
Yeah, so we're going to stay north now.
That's a big game coming up there.
Holker Old Boys against Darwin FC. Holker snatched a point against Bacup, not a result that any was expected. Back on home turf though, and Darwin, they were a bit fanciful, but again they've had a bit of a blip.
We always believed that they had playoff potentials, didn't we?
We did, yeah, we did.
Or credentials. I think I fancy a Darwin win there, but they're both high-scoring teams, aren't they?
They certainly are.
I look at the table there now. They if they're going to make a serious play for the playoffs, they need to reduce that gap. This is a definite must-win situation for Darwin. So I'm going to go. I think Darwin will have the bit between the teeth, and I think they'll win that one.
I'm going to say that Holker Old Boys are wanting to get back to their winning ways. They're on home territory against Darwin. They're sort of the free scoring, as you say. They're looking to kind of arrest a little bit of a mini slide that they've got going on, which includes sort of 2 defeats out of the last 4. So I'm going to say Holker Old Boys here.
That makes more sense. They're conceding less goals. Darwin are shipping more. So yeah. But I'm still going to go with Darwin.
Can't change it now, Frank.
No.
The highlighter.
I know that's it. Route 1 Rovers versus Daisy Hill.
Yeah. Once upon a time, I would have said that Daisy Hill would have kind of cantered to a victory here. But they're experiencing a run of form that isn't really belying a team that would canter. So just the 1 win in 6. Got beaten last time out quite emphatically, if I remember correctly. It was... 4-1 against Darwin. Now I know Darwin are a bit more razzmatazz and free scoring and attack, but you would have thought that Daisy Hill would have sort of made a better run of it than that. Route 1 do have it in them to score goals, and they do have it in them to defend. I'm going to say draw here.
Yeah, listen, I'm going to go for Daisy Hill, purely based on the fact that it keeps them just those 10 points above us.
Fair enough.
It's terrible when you look at it from that perspective, but
you've got to have a vested interest somewhere.
Yeah, and listen, leads to the final game of that weekend, which is Thornton Cleveland's against Atherton LR.
So we're staying north geographically speaking. Thornton Cleveland are winless in 6. They're on a slide. Quite a substantial one at that. Whereas Atherton LR, that's just the only team in this division that are unbeaten in their last 6 games, and I don't see that changing with this fixture. So that's an Atherton LR win for me. Yeah,
most definitely. Listen, Davey's doing a great job there. We mention him every single week. So we expect him to do the business there, and I'm pretty sure he will. Yeah, good luck to Atherton.
Absolutely.
So that's a roundup of the predictions, the fixtures, the results from last week. What have you learnt?
Be careful where you take your dogs.
Oh, you stole my line.
Nah. Listen, I think dogs are... they shouldn't be a contentious issue within football grounds, but you should always make sure to check with the club who's hosting the game before assuming anything. The last thing you want to do is have you and your dog having to leave a ground early just to, when you wanted to enjoy a game of football. So just be careful.
Yeah, I totally agree. What have I learned? Well, You've got to have a good business model at any football club if you want to stay in existence. We witnessed what happened to, and we highlighted it on the show, what happened to Gateshead last season because they didn't have the required security of tenure with the local council, and as such couldn't play in the playoffs last season. Hold on to what you've got. If you've got a football club, love it, cherish it, because you never know the minute when it could all go
bottoms up.
Bottoms up, that's a better word for it than that.
Don't say that one. We'd have to put out a swearing warning before we started.
Yeah, we're a clean show.
We are a clean show, absolutely, yes. Also, look after it. Look after your football club.
Yeah, and listen, there's no show next week as...
You're going on holiday.
I'm going to York. Yeah, I'm going to my annual trip to York to see the Christmas markets, to eat, drink, and be merry for a change. And then I get back just in time for the main road fixture next Saturday. Listen, we can briefly mention that because we won't get a chance to next week. An interesting fixture.
To say the least, yeah. Main Road have been one of those clubs that we haven't really talked about enough. You know, it's, they're doing bits without really making much of a fuss. They're kind of the ghost team in the division, but they are just outside of the playoffs, having played a game more than Exton, who hold that final playoff spot. I know it's quite early days yet. We're only just halfway through this season, but I think Main Road have kind of every opportunity to steal a march on Exton and Holker and teams like that to get into the playoffs. Interestingly enough, though, they've only drawn one game this season, which is the same as three other teams in the division. But I think, you're either winning or you're losing if you're Main Road.
Well, we know they don't concede many, so that could play a big part in the results as well, because we're not particularly scoring goals either. No. But listen, we'll be back a week on Friday. 2 weeks today. 2 weeks today, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 weeks today. So listen, we'll say goodbye, and I'll leave the final words to my co-host, AJ.
Thank you very much for listening to the Speaking Frankly Football Show with me, AJ Vergette, and Frank Hughes. We are on all the socials of Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, and please remember to subscribe on Amazon, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you get your podcasts. Please also like, comment, and rate as well, because we do thrive on feedback from yourselves. And we will see you very soon, not next week, but the week after, for another episode of the Speaking Frankly Football Show. Goodbye for now.
Goodbye.